John Resto with Wells Darby. We are at our Warren, New Jersey live studio. Today we're going to review some line sets, a new line set that we have to offer, and combat some issues we're seeing out in the field. And then we're going to get into a Conex ACR press certification course. So to lead things right off here, let's get this clicker going. So IsoTech UV and Conex. We are going to talk here just a little bit. This is our main slide showing Wells Darby, IsoTech on the left, IsoTech UV, and Conex Banniger. So IsoTech UV is a coated copper, and the reason we have a coated copper is to fight formicary corrosion. So we've been in the line set business now for quite a while. We have a base product, which is our Isoclima isopolar product, and great product. But we know in the industry that formicary corrosion is a problem. So over the last 3 years, we've been working on a solution. So formicary corrosion is basically a combination of moisture and some VOC, volatile organic chemical. And what happens is that moisture mixes with this volatile organic chemical, and it can create a slight acid. So what happens is it starts to corrode the copper. And this is from a metallurgist. What it does is it corrodes and pits the copper until it eats its way through and creates a leak. So as this volatile organic chemical mixes with the water, it gets very aggressive and it starts to eat away at the copper. This is an industry-wide problem. Not a lot of people like to talk about it, but when we see a problem out in the field as Wells Darby, we're going to try to make some type of correction. So 2 years ago, they started working on a solution. Our partner in Italy, who basically does this whole process, they go mine the copper, they extrude the copper, and the whole 9 yards, insulate it. They do the whole process. So we went to them and said, hey, we're seeing some spots in the U.S., across the U.S., where we're seeing some formicary corrosion forming. What can we do about it? So they started to test the copper. We sent some samples back, and going back and forth with them, they started to test and test and test and came up with what they figure is a really good solution. So basically what happens is they extrude the copper, and as it comes through the extruding machine, forming the copper, it then gets a coating sprayed on to the copper. That coating is then baked on. Then it's insulated and jacketed. So we took, after they sent us samples and sent samples off to the lab, we asked them for some, definition of what this looks like. So there were 2 labs in Europe, 2 labs in the US. We sent these samples there, and they took the samples and ran them through basically an acidic chamber. And as you can see there in the diagram, the IsoTech, the coated copper, the Iso Armor coated copper, fared much better over the same test period from 144 hours all the way up to 480 hours in this acidic chamber. You see the bare copper has a lot of corrosion on it. So that corrosion would lead to, further formicary corrosion, which would lead to a leak in the copper. So by putting that clear coating on the IsoTech copper, we've seen great results. So last year we launched with IsoTech, and it was a white outer jacket, the non-tear jacket that we've always had. We have a true 1/2-inch insulation on there, so that's always going to remain the same. But what we've done differently for 2020 is we've launched with a new outer jacket, and this new outer jacket now we're putting it to a gray color, and we've added some additional UV protection. So the isopolar has some UV protection in the white. So the insulation has stayed the same, the jacket material has stayed the same. We've just changed the color of the outer jacket. And the reason for that is we want contractors and wholesalers to be able to identify the difference between standard isopolar, which we still sell all over North America, and we are going to get into selling which we've just got our first shipment in, and we have 2 more containers behind it. But this gray outer jacket will identify to you that that is IsoTech UV. What does that mean to you? So basically, we still have the same tear-proof jacket. That's the same as the white. It's just gray. We've coated the copper with that clear material. So think of it as a film of protection over the copper that gets baked on. The goal of that film is to, if we get water or condensation that runs down inside of this insulation, our insulation is not going to absorb that and pull it off of the copper. It's going to stay on the copper. And that's where the formicarrier corrosion would form on the copper. So what we did is we coated this. So if the moisture gets in there and then we have those volatile organic chemicals get in there, it may create the same slight acid that it would in the white isopolar. But here with the coating on here, that will resist that corrosion. So our goal is to resist that corrosion, and that's what the Iso Armor, the clear shield on here, does. So this is IsoTech UV. It is available now. You can reach out to us at Wells Darby. Great product. We had great success with it last year. It was white jacketed last year, but it did have the coating on there. And again, there was a ton of research that went into this before they launched with it. And this just goes through and talks about all of the different things that we are ASTM B280 copper. So that's going to be an important number. ASTM B280 or ASTM B88, they're going to be important numbers when we get into the next half of this course, talking about Conex ACR press. That has to do with the quality of the copper, the wall thickness of the copper. And when we press it, we need to make sure that it will hold up when we press the copper. It's not just going to collapse under the press tool. So we meet all of those standards. We are 99.9% oxygen-free copper. So it's a high-grade ACR type copper. We have a bunch of certifications here, as you can see. I'm not going to read through each one of those, but the biggest deal is we've added that additional UV resistant protection to the outer jacket. No one on the marketplace is 100% UV resistant. It just doesn't happen. This should all still be, covered with your line hide. But if there is a portion at the end on your mini split applications or your conventional system applications where you have some jacket exposed to the sunlight, this will hold up much longer than some of our competitors. It is available from 1/4 inch up through 7/8 for business owners. Take a look at those 164 line lengths. Or we deal with a lot of 164 line lengths, and everyone that we sell to on a contractor basis through distribution. Obviously, we sell through distribution to contractors, but who we have direct contact with, we take and we push them to the 164s, and they see a greater gross profit on that line set than they do if they buy 25s or 50s because they have less waste. So there's all the sizes that are available. Again, we meet that ASTM B280, which is very important. We have a true 1/2 inch insulation around the outside of the jacket. There's your operating range. And if you pick up another manufacturer's copper spool, a roll of copper, equal lengths, feel the weight difference between the ISO product line. And I think you'll be quite surprised when you feel the difference. So that's the short little overview of our IsoTech UV. This is just hitting the marketplace here. Just landed a container at Wells Darby. Like I said, we have several more coming in. So if you're interested, please reach out to us. Nicola is our lead for our HMAX product line, which is where IsoTech UV falls under. If you need help, please reach out. I'll have an email at the end also. Okay, we are going to shift gears a little bit here now, and we are going to talk about Conex Banniger. So it's B Maxi Pro, as it says here on the shirt. We refer to this product line, we just call it Conex. Straight up, it's Conex. And there's Conex Water and there's Conex ACR. Today's focus is going to be on Conex ACR, so air conditioning and refrigeration fittings. And these are press fittings. So I will mention things several times today that are going to be on the test. If you want to take a test at the end, the last slide will have a link that you can go to. You can take a test that will get you from a 1-year warranty on a fitting to a 5-year warranty on the fitting. So, and that question may be on the test. So there's your first answer. Okay, so who is Conex Banniger? Conex Banniger is an international company. They've been around since 1909. They're all over the world. We deal directly with their headquarters, which is in the UK. The fittings are made primarily in Spain, and we have been involved with them since 2015. And we took the line on in January of 2016, and then it's been a steadily uphill growth pattern for us since we took on the line. So this is just a little bit of the history of where Conex Banniger came from and where they are today. Every change in the copper fitting world, at some point, Conex Banniger has probably been a part of it. So you can see there through the diagrams all different type fittings that they've been a part of. And 2016 is when we got into this ACR press. They did a beta test in Australia in 2015, proved the concept, and brought it live to the North American market in 2016. So in your downloads, there was a download on the right-hand side. You have that little arrow, and in there you have a question box. You also have a box with some information in there. In that information box, you will find the Conex Banniger air conditioning and refrigeration. This is basically our full-blown catalog. This has engineering specifications in here. When we deal with engineers on these type of projects, we go right to this book and clip out what we need and send it off to the engineer to meet their requests and specifications. So that's a pretty important book, and that's kind of what we're going to go through today. Okay, so probably the biggest advantage of going to an ACR press job and converting it from a typical braze job to a press job is flame free. So no hot permits, anything along those lines. Makes it a lot easier. No nitrogen flowing through the pipe while you're brazing, right? We just really simplify the installation, especially if it's a multi-level building. You're not dragging that nitrogen tank up and down floors all over the place. So basically what we can do is we can help you lower your cost of installation, and we can give you get you a tool that has a repetitive motion time after time after time. We're not brazing up over our head or anything like that. We're going to line our jaw set up over the bump in the fitting, and we're going to press that fitting, and that's going to make a 700 psi joint. So 700 psi, that's another good number to remember. Okay, so we call this a 3-point press. You'll see this a little further. I actually refer to it a little more as a 5-point press, and I'll show you here as we go on. So we have a very high quality O-ring. So the O-ring is in the fitting. That's what helps make the seal. So this is an HNBR style O-ring. That's the material it's made out of. And we meet a ton of certifications, as you'll see this going forward. And out of the bag, it's a 1-year warranty on the fitting. Again, if you take that test at the end, and that test will come back to us, we'll grade it. You pass that test, we will send you a certificate, and then Conex Banniger will follow that up with an official certificate. So, and it'll bump you to that 5-year warranty. So where would you apply this type of fitting? So really it's endless. Any type of refrigeration type system minus R717 cannot be used with R717, and cannot be used with R22. So just to put that out there, it's a different O-ring material that you would need for R22. This is a environmental friendly company. They're not going to go backwards and give us a fitting for R22. So R410 and a whole bunch of different chemicals. So if you're doing, we're the Fujitsu guys, so forgive me for referring to Fujitsu Halcyon product line, which is a residential product line. We have the flare fittings, we have elbows, we have couplings, whatever you may need to press that together. If you get into our air stage VRF line or VRV line from brand X, Y, or Z out there, we have all the fittings for those type of jobs. We have straight cut valves. That'll take a coupling. We go all the way through up to 1.125". We'll have 1.5", 2 1/8", all the way down to 1/4 inch. So a wide range to fit any type of application. So these are just some more opportunities. I know you guys are probably doing some of these jobs already, but it's an opportunity to switch like this. Just reach out to us, and if you don't have the tool, you don't have the jaw set, reach out to us or to your distribution channel and ask them for Conex ACR press fittings. They'll reach out to us, and we'll figure out a way to, make you more profitable. So a couple unique features. There's a couple different manufacturers out there right now. One manufacturer ships fittings loose. We are of the mindset to ship fittings in Ziploc bags. So we ship these in Ziploc bags. Depending on the fitting size and the fitting makeup, it could be anywhere from 1 to 5 fittings per bag. We would really appreciate you cutting the top of this off. If you don't use every fitting in the bag, put it back in the bag, reseal it. You have this on your truck, try to keep it out of UV rays. That'll eat up at the bag. The reason we want these left in a bag in a tight, dry situation is we have O-rings and we oil the O-rings, and we want to make sure those O-rings stay intact. We also want to make sure the O-rings don't pick up any dirt and debris. So I don't want to take these, rip them open, dump them in a bucket, and then carry a 5-gallon bucket around the job site, pick up all the dirt and debris, attach it to an O-ring, go to make a fitting to find out that we got a piece of sheetrock stuck in our O-ring, right? Create a leak, not something anybody wants, because nobody can make money with leaks. So on the bags, everything with Conex Banniger will be marked in pink. If you see any fitting that has a pink identification on there, or a bag that has a pink identification on here, that means it is refrigeration, okay? Front and back, every fitting. You can see the pink color here on the shirt. Anything to do with Conex ACR. Jaw set, pink. Okay, depth gauge, pink. Everything with Conex ACR press will be marked in pink. Every fitting will be marked with pink. So that's a big deal to us. So keep your fittings in the Ziploc bag. It'll just make for a better install. We want you to have a successful installation. So here is the 3-point press. And basically what we're referring to here as a 3-point press is, this is our O-ring. This is a cutaway of a fitting. So that's where this B comes into play. We press over this fitting like a B. So we press on the left side, we press on the top, and we press on the right side. So this would be the straight line of the B, and then we would press over the O-ring in a B type form. The jaw set also crimps the copper to copper here at the back end of the fitting and here at the front end of the fitting. And we're going to get into a second camera mode here in a little while, and we're going to show you that inside of, let me get this laser going again, inside of the copper right here, there's actually a copper lip on the fitting, and that kind of digs into the copper. And if you've ever put a nut down onto a ferrule for like a sink type application, and then you remove the nut, the ferrule kind of bores into the copper a little bit and really holds it tight. That's what that little copper lip does on the end of our fitting. So it makes for a really tight seal. So applications, and I'm going to go through this because some of this information will be on your test. Okay, and I'll probably say those things a couple of times that are going to be on your test, if I didn't already tell you that. Application, air conditioning, refrigeration, heat pump. That's where we're going to use these fittings. We're not using them on water. We're not using them on air, anything else like that. That's where we're going to use these fittings. Connection point, copper to copper only. Connection point, copper to copper only. That's important to remember, and you'll see why later. Fitting range, 1/4 to 1 1/8". Again, we have 1 3/8". I have a 1 3/8 fitting here on the table. We're going to look at that a little bit later. Fitting material, 99.9% pure copper. There's a theme here, right? We talked about it with the IsoTech UV, with the isopolar. We all have that nice 99.9% oxygen-free copper, which is important. The O-ring, that HNBR material, very, very robust. So here's the oils we're compatible with: POE, PAO, PVE, AB, mineral oil. We're not compatible with PAG. Operating pressure, 700 PSI. That is the limitations of roll copper, 700 PSI. That's where we land, 700 PSI. We will work with roll copper that meets, that ASTM B280 or B88 standard, and with rigid copper. We have a 2100 PSI burst pressure, so that's 3 times the working pressure. And again, the working pressure is 700 PSI. That may be important to you later. Okay, the O-ring range is 40 to 284, but you're gonna write down the UL number because you're gonna need that later. The UL is -40 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That's going to be an important number to you later. So this right here goes through and gives you the refrigeration compatibilities. And again, this is right out of the, I'll call it the Conex Banniger manual. These are just little clips out of there. I think the most important thing on this whole slide, really, to really burn this in, is that we are not compatible with R717, and we are not compatible with R22 refrigerants. Okay, so that's probably the biggest takeaway on this slide, so just keep that in mind. Now, there are a ton of different coppers out there, and when we're talking about annealed coils, that's roll copper, that's a coil, and the annealing is a process that hardens the copper so you can press on it. And we identify here the wall thickness that's needed on each size of the copper to withstand the pressure of the jaw set pressing on there without damaging the copper itself. Okay, that's important. And if you're going to use a press system, you need to make sure that the copper that you purchase to go with that press system will meet these standards. If it doesn't, you're basically setting yourself up to fail on that job. So the amount of time and labor and everything you're going to save on using the press system, don't skimp out on the copper and then have a problem. Certifications, I could sit here for 5 minutes and read all of these certifications to you, but again, this is in that Conex Banniger manual. This is a pretty standard testing process on all of these, and again, this is sold all over the world, this product. So there may be some tests on here that don't necessarily adhere to our market, but they're just showing you all of the different tests that they've been through. This is where it gets important. So this is the Romex 4000 jaw. This happens to be the 1/2 inch size. So what we do here in this chart is we give you the dimension you need, whether you're going directly into the pipe like this and you're going to take and clamp onto the pipe. We're going to give you the dimensions around the jaw set that you need to make sure that you can get a proper press when installing ACR pipe. Okay, so important. This is one jaw set. This is the larger of the 2 jaw sets. We have a smaller jaw set which fits our twin turbo, a rigid 200 series, or a M12 series type press tool. So this again is in the manual. We just want to make sure that if you're hanging this pipe, we want you to hang the pipe, no stress on the pipe before you press it. That's important because that's going to be asked to you later on that potential test if you take it. So if I have 2 pieces of copper coming across like this and they're bowing down, I don't want to put a coupling in there, lift it up and press it and expect my coupling to be my pipe hanger. So you're going to hang the pipe and then you're going to go through and hit your presses. And the reason, you're going to put a lot of time and effort into hanging it, we want to make sure that you have the room to get this jaw in there to press it. So you don't have to start taking hangers down when you're ready to press pipe. We also give you an insertion depth, and the majority of the fittings are kind of marked as far as how deep to put them in, but it is important to Conex that we use this depth gauge. So this depth gauge has a window, and when you take your pipe and slide it in, you'll basically see your pipe in that window, and then you will mark the pipe right there with the black marker that they give you in the kit. This is in the jaw kit. Both of these items are in the jaw kit. So you'll mark that right there, and now you know your insertion depth. So when you put your fitting on there, your fitting needs to go all the way to that black mark. If it does not, it's not all the way on. And when you press it, you're watching that black mark to make sure your fitting stays in place. There's no movement in that fitting. We want to make sure we get a good, secure clamp on that pipe. So that is your minimum distances for all the different sizes. Here we're going to give you pressing close to a existing brass joint. So there was a, I don't know, conventional system installed yesterday or 2 weeks ago, and the landscaper came through and wiped out a piece of copper. So you go back there and you don't want to braze, it's too close to the house, whatever the scenario may be. So you're going to go in there and you're going to put a coupling in. So what we do here is we give you a minimum distance from a braze fitting to a press fitting. And really all that is doing is it's ensuring that when we take and crimp this piece of pipe, that we're not going to affect the braze joint over here. So we're just giving you a minimum distance. We want to make sure that by fixing this one, we're not destroying the braze fitting. So there's a minimum distance. You can see they're not real great distances, but that's going to be our minimums. We also give you here if you need to braze to an existing fitting. I say, you know, there's an O-ring in our fitting. So protect it like you protect the O-ring in a conventional AC system. There's an O-ring in the valve at the end of the air conditioning system that you're putting on the condenser outside. Wrap it with the wet rag. Use the paste. Whatever you use. These have O-rings in them. Just protect the fittings. So we have a whole array of fittings here. You name it. We go from, you know, your typical flare fittings, flare to press in all the sizes. We have your elbows, your couplings. We have reducers, reducing fittings. We make T's, not to be used on a Fujitsu system, but we make T's and another elbow. Touching on these elbows, these are considered long way elbows. So you don't have to go in and calculate friction resistance for these elbows, which is important because there's a couple of different products that are out there on the market today that may look easier, but you have to calculate in the resistance of the elbows because they're not long way elbows. So there are several different press tools out there. Twin turbo, Romex 4000. I'm going to use the Romex 4000 today. Two different options for you. So if you prefer the smaller tool, that could be the twin turbo, which is a 24 kilonewton machine. It could be a Milwaukee M12. It could be a rigid 200 series. All of the jaws are listed on the right-hand side of the screen. If you want the whole jaw kit, it comes in a case. It has a cutter, a deburr, a reamer. It has Scotch-Brite pads. It has the marker and the depth gauge, and it has 6 jaws. So we go 1/4 to 7/8. If you want to add the 1 1/8 to it, you can. This gun will not do 1 3/8 or above. Okay, it's only a 24 kilonewton gun. We stop at 1 1/8 on that size tool. So that's one. If you do a lot of large diameter pipe, you may want the Romex 4000. You may want a Milwaukee M18. You may want a rigid 300 series. All of those tools will work with these jaw sets. Okay, we package together the 1 1/4 through 7/8 and 1 1/8 at 2206 part number. This is actually a jaw out of the 4000 kit, and you get the same materials you get in the twin turbo kit. This is important because these jaws, they have to be used on Conex ACR. There's no substitutions here for jaws. It has to be that jaw on this fitting. Okay, I want to make sure you get a quality press job. First impression, right? If you fail on your first job, you probably won't use it again. I want to make sure you understand how this works so you have a successful press job. So what would it look like? We want you to work safe. That's priority number one. These tools have a lot of torque, and you know they're pressing, and it doesn't know if it's pressing your finger or pressing a piece of copper. So it's very important to work smart. Again, you take that test when we're done today. You go from a 1-year warranty on a fitting to a 5-year warranty on a fitting. So just follow all your local codes, do everything you need to do with your refrigeration circuits, and just work safe and smart. So the biggest key here is, you know, when we talk air conditioning, refrigeration, it's clean, tight, and dry, right? That's our goal, is clean, tight, and dry. So clean, we're trying to achieve that by keeping the fittings in the bag as long as possible. Tight, we're going to do that by prepping the copper properly and lining the tool up properly and pressing the copper properly. All right, that'll get us tight. Dry, you're going to take care of that with your nitrogen. So prepping the tool is probably one of the most important things. Some habits that we may have from in the past, you know, we can't have scratches, dings, dents, any printing in the copper. We can't press over any of those items. If I was brazing, or you were brazing, better yet, if you were brazing and I put a scratch in here or I put a dent in here, I know you could fill it with brazing. There's no doubt in my mind, and it would be a tight fitting. Unfortunately, on the press side, the press tool doesn't know that. The O-ring doesn't know that there's a scratch in here. The O-ring doesn't know that there's a dent in here. So it can't go in and fill that hole like you can when you're brazing. So the rule is, if I can catch my fingernail in the scratch is too deep, and I have to cut that piece of pipe off and start over. Okay, that is critically important. We are not going to go fill a dent, a scratch, a hole, anything with the O-ring. So clean copper is important. That's key. So do that. Aligning of your pipe, again, that is critically important. Aligning of your jaw set is important. So if I want to align my jaw set here, I am basically going to take my jaw set in the jaw, and I'll show you this with the other camera shortly. There's a lip in here. I'm going to put the bump, I'll call it the bump on the fitting, right in there, and then I'll put this in the jaw, I'll pull the trigger, the jaw set will come down, it will touch, and that joint will be pressed. So we just need to make sure that we line everything up properly so we get a good press joint. So first things first, you're always going to use a rotary cutter. I'm going to say that twice because that may be an important question you see later. You're always going to use a rotary type cutter. Now, with a rotary cutter, when we put this on here, okay, this is a fresh end of copper. And you can see, I can see right through there, no problem, no blockage or anything else. When I take this rotary cutter, depending on how tight I am as I'm cutting, I'm going to do one of two things with that copper. I'm either going to push the copper outwards or I'm going to drive the copper inward. So here is a pipe that I just cut a few minutes ago, and you can see there's a lip on the inside of it. So you will cut your copper. That's going to be first. After you cut your copper, okay, we're going to look at it, and we want to deburr. And I am going to make, you're not going to see this right now, but when we switch cameras, you will see it in a little while. So I'm going to take the deburr, and I'm going to be working in the downward position. So I'm just going to take it, I'm going to put that in, and I'm going to rotate this, and I don't have to be Hercules. Okay, you're going to switch cameras? Okay, you did. All right, so they switch cameras for me, so I'm just going to take and you tell me when you're good. I can see it here on my screen. Okay, we're good. So I'm just going to take and do that on the inside. I'm going to take the other end and I'm going to deburr the outside. So after I just cut it, I want to deburr it, ream it, deburr it, and then I'm going to take the deburring tool that comes with the kit. I'm going to go around the inside, and I hope you can see all that copper falling out. And remember, this is just one joint. So you do a VRF job, you could have hundreds of joints. Okay, so I've done that. We just keep clicking ahead here. I lost the ability to click. There we go. All right, so I've done the reaming and deburring. Now I'm going to grab my Scotch Brite pad, and I'm just going to go around the edges and take anything off that I might have left. And I want to shine that pipe up so I have a good clean spot to attach to. So there's the end. You can see I deburred it. It's clean. The outside is clean. I have no scratches or dings where I can catch my fingernail in there. So that tells me that is a good clean pipe, and I can go ahead and use that pipe. So now I'm just going to lay this here. Now I'm going to look at my fitting, and these are manufactured fittings. So again, I really like to do things once. I don't want to have to go back, and I always just look in here and I make sure there's an O-ring. So I have an O-ring on that side. I have an O-ring on that side. Everything there looks good to me. Okay, so my fitting is good. Everything there looks good. Now I'm going to get my depth gauge, and I'm going to take my pipe, 1/2-inch pipe. It's marked. I'm going to push it in. I can see here in the window that I am inserted 100%. And I am just going to take this and I'm going to mark it. And then I'm going to remove the pipe from the depth gauge. Okay. Now I'm going to take my fitting, and I'm in the habit of, I always like to rotate as I push my fitting on. These fittings have a very tight tolerance. So when you go to put them on, it's not like a water press fitting where you have a little bit of slop in there. These are very tight tolerance. So I push my fitting on, it's all the way, and I've made it all the way to my mark, my indicator, telling me I'm at the right depth. So it's inserted. I'm good there. Now I would take, here's my jaw set, okay? So 1/2-inch to match the size of the fitting. And I just want to show you the inside of this jaw set here. And I hope you can get a pretty good view of this. So we have an outer edge, and then we have this inter edge right dead smack in the center. That is where the rib goes, right into the center. And then this jaw set wraps completely around it. Okay, when I put this in the tool, it's going to press this and squeeze it together. So what I'd like to do right now for 1 minute is I'd like to switch back to the other camera, and I'll grab the tool. We're going to go back and forth here a couple of times there. Our camera workers, Chris and Eric in the back, working the cameras like normal and doing a great job as always. So here's my jaw set. This is the Romex 4000 tool. Okay, so what I've done here is this just is in place like so. You rotate it around, slide it out. That opens up the center to insert your jaw set. Your jaw set will take and slide in. You're going to push the rod back across, lock it down into position, check your jaw, make sure it's ready to go, and it's ready to go. It's never a bad idea to always do a dry run. Pull the trigger, do a dry run, let it go through a press. Okay, good. This tool has the opportunity to rotate the head a couple times. You also have an LED light here. Not a bad option. So what I'll do here is I always want to check at least once a day. I want to make sure that my jaw set is clean. When you press a fitting, so here's a press, this is a 1/4-inch fitting. We are making the copper shrink around the pipe. So you're always going to have a little piece of copper material that sticks out. If that little piece of copper material sticks out, starts to get sharp or becomes larger than what you're used to seeing, that's usually an indicator that your jaw set is dirty. So keep an eye on that. Always check your fitting when you're done. Again, if it starts to get real sharp, be careful, don't cut your finger. But if it starts to get to a sharp point, make sure you're inserting it properly. Make sure your jaw set is clean. Make sure your fittings are clean. Okay, if we could switch back to the other camera, that would be wonderful. And we will stay on that camera for a little while here. So just before we press this fitting, I just want to show you a couple of things under this other camera. So we have these fittings here, which are flare by press. Okay. And I happen to have a Fujitsu outdoor unit valve, and this is a flare by press fitting. And I just want to show you, I had a contractor call me and said he was struggling making money installing Fujitsus. And I went out there to find out why. And we had a long conversation, and we did some cutting and flaring in his shop with his guys, and found out that there were about 4 good flares out of 11 that were made. And a lot of it had to do with the quality of the flaring tool that they had. So he went ahead and purchased the jaw set and started using these flare to press fittings. And as you can see, this is cut at a 45-degree angle. The valve is at a 45-degree angle. That's exactly what everyone wants in the mini split world and on the VRF side. So this will take and line up perfectly on there. And since that gentleman bought his first set of Conex tools and started using the fittings, he now has 4 jaw sets, and he's using the fittings on every install crew that he has. So it has reduced his problems in the field dramatically. They're going to be torqued, right? There's a torque specification for each one of these based on the manufacturer. So what we would really like to see is just a little bit of refrigerant oil on the back side, so that when you tighten this, the brass nut doesn't grab the copper and twist it. And maybe just a smidge on the inside of the face of the flare. We do not want to get the oil on the threads, because that will throw your torque specification off, but never a bad idea. Just put a little oil on the backside, and again, so you can do your torque, and everything will be fine. So that's what I really wanted to show you as far as options and what's available to you to make your life easier and hopefully reduce some service type calls. This is an 1 3/8 elbow. So this fitting right here, I figured this is the largest fitting I have right now today with me. And I'm hoping that, yeah, Eric just did an awesome zoom in job. So right inside of this fitting, there's a lip right here on the copper, and you may be able to see it there. It might be a little difficult, but there's the O-ring. You can see the insertion depth. This is a real good look into a fitting, but we basically press left side, right side on top. We press right here, and inside it's touching copper to copper. And then out here on the edge, we press, and that's where that little extra meat of copper digs into the pipe to help secure the copper to the pipe. Okay, so that's a nice little breakout. Now what we're going to do is I'll bring the tool into the picture. So here's the tool into the picture. This is our 1/2-inch jaw set. We're going to take and work on a 1/2-inch fitting. So I'm going to rotate it this way, and I'm going to try to, there we go. I get it right there where you can see it. Here's my fitting. Again, every fitting will have the pink marking on there, and that'll normally say 48 bar. Hard to see here on the camera, but it says 48 bar. 48 bar is 700 PSI. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that bump portion that sticks out where the O-ring is. We're going to put it directly into the jaw set right there in the center. So you can see into this jaw very well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let it wrap around it. And now what I want you to watch is right here at the top, that's actually going to make a full wrap all the way around that fitting and cut. So here we go, we're pressing, there it comes up, boom, it touched. I'm going to release the jaw, release the fitting, and I just pressed a fitting. That fitting is ready to go into a system and handle 700 PSI. Right here, if you can see that little bump, that's that little piece of material that I said, we're squeezing this fitting. So here's that little piece of material. When we squeezed it, that's what came out. And we want that to stay dull. If this becomes sharp or it's moving it, that's going to be time for you to take a look at your jaws, make sure they're clean. Now, after the fitting has been made, I'm just going to go back here and show you. Right there's my black mark from when I had the insertion depth gauge on here. So now after I press this fitting, I'm going to mark it again. I'm going to mark it here. So now if I'm walking the job, I know the insertion depth is correct. I know that the fitting has been pressed because I marked it. If I have a supervisor on the job, he may want to come and go across this way, and that will tell him Yes, I've checked that fitting. Yes, that fitting is pressed. Yes, I'm ready for 700 PSI. James, any questions on that so far? I hear you typing away over there. That James DePalma's over to my right. He's my young mentor, and he's answering questions today. So it's appreciated everybody getting up early and getting in here. We can go back to the regular camera. And basically what we're going to look at here is we're going to look at on the screen of the press taking place on the PowerPoint slide. That's what it would look like after the fitting is done. That's the marks that we recommend that you would put on the fitting to make sure everything is right. So from a testing standpoint, you're going to do everything you do on a typical system. With a press type system, if you leave your vac gauge on there overnight, however you do it, you won't go under 200 microns. That's going to be the lowest you'll draw down to with a O-ring type system. So that's fine. You're still going to use your nitrogen for purging and everything along those lines. This is just a nice little tidbit here. So for every 9 degrees of outdoor temperature change, you will probably see somewhere around a 10 PSI change in your system. So if you leave the job and it's 40 degrees out, you come back the next day and it's 35 degrees out, that will explain why your gauge has changed. That's just a good little reference point. And that's kind of where we're at. Again, to go to that 5-year warranty, you'll on the next slide, you will see a little, it's called a tiny URL. You'll type that into your web browser. You'll go to that site and you will take the test and we will send you out a certificate. So we want to thank you for spending some time with us this morning. And we look forward to any communications that you may have. That's the tinyurl.com, www.tinyurl.com/Conex certification. That's where you will go take the test. Again, that'll get you from 1 year to 5 year on fitting warranty. And that information will come back to us. We will grade it. Chris will send you a temporary certificate, and Conex Banneker will follow that up with their official certificate. Any questions we need to answer? Everything is good. So this test, I just got poked in the eye there. Good point. Thank you for reminding me. You have to take that test within 24 hours. And for all of our training that we do, all the recordings, a portion of this will be on the HVACinsiders.com. Yeah, spit that out again. www.hvacinsiders.com. That's our page where we put all of our training that's going to be coming up and coming. That's where we put all of our training that has already been done. That's where all our recordings are. That's where a ton of our communication goes out, is through that HVAC Insider site. So I just want to thank everybody that's in the background here, James, Chris, and Eric, for working with me here this morning. Everyone, thank you for participating. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.